Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Primetime Crisis Vlogs, The Flash. Today we're talking about episode 3 of season 3 of The Flash, which is titled Magenta. So let's jump right into it. So, if we go back to last episode, I really liked last week's episode of The Flash, but this episode, I have to say, I really didn't like at all. So it was crazy. I wasn't expecting to like any of this season, but I really did like the first 2 episodes kind of. And then, this episode, I'm coming into it and I'm just like, okay, I'm excited because, I kind of like Flash right now. And then I watched it and I'm just, crushed. Because it wasn't like a offensively bad episode. I just really don't like everything that happens in it, and I can make fun of it for hours. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's start off with the Wells plot. So Wells and Jesse, they come over, and Jesse has speed powers now. And so they go to the speed lab, which we haven't had before, but because of the new timeline, we now have the speed lab. And Jesse starts running in there, and Wally's jealous now because Jesse has powers and he doesn't, and he thinks that he might get powers. And, I can't care about that at all just because it comes across as so entitled that you're like, man, I'm all angry and sad, and I'm going to let the fact that I don't have godlike superpowers, just put me in a real big bummer. That's really scary when someone's that, saddened by the fact that they don't have this amazing power at their, just will. Just they can will this power however they see fit. That says something about you as a person, right? When you're that bummed out that you don't have that level of power. So I just don't care about Wally feeling sad about that. I just can't really care about that. That comes across as really entitled in a lot of ways. But then you go back to Jessie, and she is getting all angry because Wells doesn't want her to use her powers. And so she's like, my dad keeps saying, is trying to get everyone to tell me not to use my powers. And it comes across like she has a copy of the script. So she because she's right. That is why they're there. They are there so that Wells can get them to help her, or to help convince her to not use her powers, right? And that's reasonable. I mean, he's her dad, and he doesn't want her to get killed because what Barry does is very dangerous. So it's perfectly reasonable for him to think that. Just because you have powers, are you now obligated to be a superhero? Should you? Is it the most logical path for you to take? Maybe, depending on who you are, but not necessarily. So he's, I don't want her to use I don't want her to go out and try to be a speedster. So, it's reasonable. She is the moment Caitlin talks to her, she's like, oh my God, my dad brought me here to get everyone to talk to me about not using my powers. And it's she keeps stressing everybody. When she's talking to Wally, she's like, my dad keeps telling everybody to not stop saying everybody. You've only talked to Caitlin, and you're right that he does want everyone to convince you that. But at the same time, you've only talked to one person. So it's you have a version of the script and you're reading from it, and oh yeah, I know this is why he brought me here now. And you haven't even talked to your dad. But so I really couldn't care about that because it was just really, this is the kind of drama, this is the kind of petty drama that I was praising last episode for not really being about. This is about this is about really small stuff. In the last episode, really big things had changed because of a really bad choice Barry had made. And that was cool to see Barry not have a way out of it. He just had to accept that he really messed up. I like that. This episode, it's just this is what the drama that's that's propelling the story through this episode. This is what it revolves around. So I just really, all of that stuff. Oh, also point this out. She keeps saying, Barry got his powers and he was immediately out in the field being a speedster. And it's okay, 2 things. One, you're a lot younger than Barry. So when Barry chooses to do that as a 25-year-old adult, that's one thing. But when when you might even be is she in high school or college at this point? I don't really know. She's a lot younger than Barry, so it's different for one. And 2, Barry almost died so many times because he wasn't prepared to be out in the field doing the things that he was doing, and a lot of times it was luck that he survived. So yeah, that knowing that, with the benefit of hindsight, you should be able to say, yeah, maybe I should train before going out in the field. Maybe you should train in the art of combat before, fighting people, like in supervillains and stuff like that. Maybe you should train in the art of speed combat. So she was being completely ridiculous that whole time. And the whole plot with Frankie, okay, it really irks me because I feel like this episode could almost be the exact same episode. If you took Frankie out and replaced her with like a giant like lizard monster that was just like, or like not even, it doesn't even be giant, just a lizard monster, okay? Let's not even go giant lizard monster. Just throw a lizard monster in Flash. It's tearing up stuff. And then the Wells plot with Jessie wanting to go out and fight, but she can't because her dad doesn't want her to. That whole plot, you can keep that stuff. You can keep the Barry and Iris can't go out on a date because it keeps getting messed up and stuff. You can keep that stuff as well. But everything could be the same if you just took out this really and you could make everything else better if you just took out this really uninteresting plot with Frankie / Magenta, because that whole thing is just like so typical in every aspect. So the setup where it's like, oh, the really mean, abusive foster parent, mean guy. Okay, I've never seen that before. Fine, whatever. And then she's just like, Frankie's character is so one note. It's just, I'm really sad. And like, I understand, like, she's like a abused child, so there's reason for that. But that's such a one-note character. It's just like they give us the most obligatory evil father figure, and then the most generic, sad little girl. It's just like, and then she has a split personality, right? And she's like, using her telekinesis and crap, and that's all cool. But really, it's like so uninteresting if you just replaced it with like something else or some other like more interesting character. Like, it's just so ugh. And I'll point this out. It's hilarious in the scene when she's busting out of the police station, when she throws the car with the guy inside of it, and Barry's like, no, and Barry goes super speed, and he runs up and he grabs the guy out of the car, and he lands on the ground, and then he turns around and she's gone, and it's like, how on earth did she escape that quick? Like, Barry went like in like 1 second, jumped up in the air, grabbed the guy, and had landed in like a second, because the car was flying through the air when he did it. So it was like, psh. And immediately he turns around and he's like, where did Magenta go? And it's like, what do you mean? Like, how did she get that far? You should be able to find her. There's no way she outran you. Like, that's ridiculous. There's no way that you can't just catch her right now. What's going on? You're a speedster. You're a speedster, Barry. Run, Barry, run. But yeah. So again, my whole complaint with that is that like I said, it's really all that's really typical, but you can take like all of it out and it's almost the exact same episode. Replace like this week's like villain of the week. It could have been anything, and every other plot would have worked the exact same. And it just feels at that point like a really big, plug-in for formula. And I understand like this show does episodic episodes like that, but if you're gonna do an episodic episode, you should like really utilize the fact that you're gonna tell a really small self-contained episode. Like you should utilize that fact, not just willy-nilly insert random and arbitrary plot elements. You should utilize the fact that this episode is going to be a small contained story, and then the next episode might be part of the overarching season story. So, like utilize the type of episode that you're making. Don't just waste a whole segment of it to this really uninteresting, sad daughter character to an abusive father that it's just there to like try to get you to care, because no one likes to see kids in those kind of situations. So it's just the most like, this is something that'll make people care about Frankie's character. Other than that, like, what do we know about Frankie? She just cries a lot. That's like the whole thing. And I sound really horrible for criticizing her, but I mean, like, it's just not fun to watch. It's just not. You could have done it in a lot more interesting of a way, but at this point, it just wasn't fun to watch. So I'm trying to think. I don't know if there was anything else in this episode that was really worth noting. I'm wondering how long we'll go with the Caitlin has ice powers. I wonder how long we'll keep that a secret. I thought it was really funny when she was talking, when they're all talking to Wells. I mean, Cisco and Caitlin are talking to Wells, and Cisco's argument for why he shouldn't be the one to talk to Jesse is that he has powers. So a guy with powers shouldn't be telling you not to use your powers. And then Caitlin's argument is, well, I don't have powers, even though she does. So why should I be the one? So it's like, okay, well, then by this logic, nobody can tell her not to use her powers because, like, yeah, one of you is more qualified to tell her not use her powers than the other. Okay, it's probably you, Cisco, but it's just funny how they both have the same reason, and neither of them address how it doesn't make any sense that they both have that position and they can't just both agree on that. One of them has to be the better choice to have that discussion with her. But that's just a really small thing. It's not even really worth complaining about. I'm sorry. Is there anything that I really liked this episode? I almost liked the use of the Wells line, run, insert name here, run. But run, Jesse, run. It's just not as cool. It's just not as cool as Run, Barry, run. It's not. I guess overall, this week's episode really just kind of didn't work for me on any level. So this sounded like a really ranty episode. I'm sorry, but I just didn't like it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't really have anything else to say, actually, because I just don't want to sit here and be really negative forever. So I'm going to end this video right now before I say any more horrible things about this episode of The Flash. So join me next week where we talk about the next episode that's going to have Mirror Master in it. And I saw the trailer for that episode, and it looks really terrible. So we'll just, have a great time talking about that. Hopefully it's not terrible. It might be, but... So yeah, what did you guys think of this episode? If you really liked it, I'm sorry that I disagreed with you, but that's just how the world goes. So leave your opinions and stuff in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.